Yeah, sure. Thank you so much for joining to the last session of our E3 Summit. So basically, have you ever thought that it was possible for teenagers to write language for a real UN resolution? So in this WashPap 2030 session, we get to learn about how students here at MUN Impact joined forces with One Shared World, the Indian Sanitation Coalition, German and French foreign ministries, and other international organizations to draft a resolution guaranteeing clean water, sanitation, hygiene, and pandemic protection for all by 2030 that will be introduced to both the UN General Assembly and the G20 this year. Student leaders, world-renowned experts, and diplomats will come together in this session to walk you through the hashtag WashPap2030 campaign and explain the process of turning an MUN resolution into a real UN resolution, as well as provide you with advocacy tools to join this global movement to ensure that the world's most vulnerable people have access to water, sanitation, hygiene, and pandemic protection. The pandemic has taught us that our world is interconnected, and none of us are safe until all of us are. Please, without further ado, I'm going to hand it over to our presenters.
Thank you. And Lisa, are you joining? Lisa Martin. Okay. My name is Annie Forsheimer. I'm just going to give a very short overview from the point of view of One Shared World. So you may not have heard of this organization because it's brand new. It was started last year at a point in the pandemic where the founder, Jamie Metzl, looked at the problems of our world that the pandemic really symbolized and said, why are there no decision-making systems in place that are big enough to handle the problems that are affecting everybody everywhere? And I think we all can see that nations make decisions that are selfish, that are about themselves. And even our international institutions are not quite strong enough to face down and make tough decisions about issues like the pandemic or climate change. And so we're looking for all of the different ways that people can come together and put our leaders on notice that they have to think about decision-making in a new way. And the first problem that we're trying to look at in depth is this issue of water and sanitation and pandemic preparedness, and how all of them can come together in the minds of our decision makers, which includes ourselves, to say that there's really nothing that should stop us from having adequate access to all of these services for everyone on the earth, by 2030. We actually know what to do, but things are standing in the way. And so the idea of creating a model General Assembly resolution, came about, and we've had this incredible partnership with Model UN Impact and the India Sanitation Coalition to say, how can we take the same decision making and actually do it in a whole new way? So young people have put together the elements of this resolution. We've had input from experts, from very senior people in different organizations, and we're going to be sending it now to one of the biggest legal authorities who kind of is in charge of editing all these resolutions. And this way, we're going to have a resolution that comes straight from the bottom, has bubbled up through all of these ideas, but is amazingly well crafted to get the attention now of diplomats who can get some kind of resolution passed. If it's ours, great. If it's parts of ours, also great. So we're really excited about this and very thankful that you're spending your time working on this today with us. So I'll hand it over to Lisa if you want to talk about MUN Impact's role. Or not, and we'll move to the next part.
So I think the next part is kind of introductions by Rita and Reem on the discussion of the actual debates. And if you guys could talk a bit about your experience with MUN Impact and how it has been with One Shared World, that would be great.
Okay, so first starters, my name is Rita, and I am one of the people who participated in the debates this past March, and I'm joined by Reem. I don't know if you want to introduce yourself.
Hi everyone, so yeah, I'm Reem. I worked alongside this amazing team where we started from having just a debate to being in the vetting team for this resolution.
Yeah, so we're going to talk a little bit about the debates and our experience with MUN Impact and how it has been working with the One Shared World team on this. So I think I speak for me and for Reem, if I'm not mistaken, when I say we both joined MUN Impact because of WashPap.
I actually joined a bit before WashPup, but I think WashPup engaged me more. It gave me something completely new.
Okay, I joined MUN Impact because of WashPap, for instance. So I guess this has changed both our lives in a way, or mine for sure, because I joined MUN Impact because of this. So basically, this past March, there were a ton of MUN debates in 4 different languages where youth came together to create resolutions that focus on the issue of water, sanitation, hygiene, and pandemic protection for all until the year 2030. So I think we were both in the English debates, but there were also debates in French, in Russian, and in Spanish. So those debates for me were just wonderful. We got to listen to the input of people from all around the world, including people who have gone actually through problems with water, sanitation, and pandemic protection for all. So we were all affected by COVID-19, unfortunately. It has, impacted all of our lives. But like, I live in Portugal, which is a country where most of people have access to clean water and sanitation, especially if you live in the city. I think 100% of people who live in the cities or around that have access to these facilities. And I mean, having this opportunity to debate it and, to research about this topic really opened my mind to this issue. The decision to join this debate for me was a last minute one. I have been doing Oman for 4 weeks straight. And they were like, we are going to stop for, a month because we have this campaign coming up. And I was like, oh, I don't know if I want to do this because I don't think I have a lot to say about it. But I actually ended up joining last minute because I wanted to keep practicing my MUN skills. And I think it was the best last minute decision I've ever made. And since then, I've had the opportunity to work in the resolution, which has been amazing. I've had the opportunity to listen from experts, from fellow youth leaders like Reem and Zoe, and from the people of One Shared World. And I think I'm going to hand it over to Reem so she can tell us about her personal experience.
Unlike Rita, I was actually also my decision was kind of last minute. They needed last minute admins and I just volunteered to. And as an admin being in this room, it was really nice. And because this was an international thing, I was in the English debate, by the way, hearing everyone's opinions and everyone's discussions, because everyone, since coming from different backgrounds, has different stories to share, that added to it more realness rather than having just an MUN debate where a group of youth who have been raised in the same community come together and just based off of research. With personal experience, I think this brings a lot more to the table than anything else does. So it was just a phenomenal experience itself, listening to everyone's opinions. And then as a team, with One Shared World, hearing the experts' thoughts, everyone working hard and grinding, looking at the resolution coming together was wonderful. Just seeing how we started, and then we started off kind of confused and lost. We had so many great clauses, but we were like, we have to perfect this. And every week goes by, I'm excited to meet with the team and then finish the meeting and go back on this resolution and fix it and edit it and see what I can bring to the table from my own personal experience and background and opinion was just amazing. And I think as a team, we really came together and made this amazing resolution, which hopefully passes.
Yes, and during the debates, it was just so great to see so much youth involved. I only went to one of the debates, and there were like 4 of them, so I only got or more. So I only got to see like a fraction of the people who joined, but there were like 50 people or more just in the debate I attended, and just seeing so much people, so much youth involved in creating this resolution. So a lot of resolutions came out of the debates, and some people came together and put them all together in a single resolution with the strongest clauses and the most prevalent ones throughout the whole the whole of the resolutions. And from then on, a team was assembled to vet said resolution and draft it, and create something that can actually be brought to the UN. And if Reem does not have any other remarks, I'm going to hand it over to Sandy and everyone else.
Thank
I
you,
just
Rita.
wanted, oh, sorry, can I
Go
quickly
ahead.
just ask?
Absolutely.
Thank you. And I think what makes this resolution itself so powerful and speaks to others more is because it's mainly combined with youth's opinions and thoughts and stories, because the youth are the next generation. They are the future leaders of this world. So having their input in something this big is not something you would commonly see. So it's just amazing to see that youth have a voice. They actually have an impact on this world. And I think this is kind of MUN Impact's like goal with their name, you can tell.
Perfect. Thank you guys so much for your incredible insights as to how the debates went. As you guys are aware, and as briefly mentioned by Annie, Reed, and Reem as well, is that this whole process was intergenerational, international. Everybody had a hand in it. And I'd just like to quickly go over the process in which we did that. So we had multiple debates, multiple languages, all over the world. So many different people joined in, and we had amazing people like Reed and Reem and so many others who happened to join in coincidentally, but who also had a vision for it and wanted to say their part. But at the end of it all, we recognized that there was a little bit of a hurdle we needed to get over. And that hurdle be the UN process. How can we take something that was written by youth, that was intergenerational, involved everybody's perspectives and stuff, and actually take it to a place where we can only and hopefully get it passed and get it approved? How can we do that? So there was definitely a bit of a balancing act that we engaged in. Taking all these amazing inspirational and aspirational ideas from the youth, from the global youth, matching it and balancing it with, how do we invoke something within the resolution that will entice our world leaders to actually say, let's do it, let's get it approved. And I will say that the main principle at the end of this, within our resolution, within our partnership, within the WASHPAP 2030 campaign, is the concept of interdependence. We all collectively work together from all over the world. We used our own experiences, our own local experiences, our own regional experiences, our global experiences to talk about something that really affected every single one of us. And that's, that it literally comes down to that. The concept of interdependence, whether it be working collectively, intergenerationally, or working collectively internationally, it really does show and reflect in the resolution. And I'm just beyond proud and amazed and grateful and blessed to be working with an amazing set of people from all over the world, from different organizations, to get together and write this resolution and sort of balance the different considerations we needed to take into mind. And so I'm going to hand it over to Nikita, and then we'll talk a little bit about the actual resolution process, how we took, 4 or 5 different resolutions from these MUN debates and really carefully and thoughtfully reworded it and rephrased it within the considerations of the UN process in mind to bring this to the General Assembly and say, hey, you need to pass this.
Thanks, Sandy. I think Sandy, you really summarized the essence of kind of what we've been working on. And just in terms of what to add, I would just reiterate the sense of awe that we've had as being part of the team that gets to kind of work on revising this resolution and kind of trying to tweak it every time. And it really is amazing that this is a document that has been touched by people from all over the world, but also from people who are all across in different points in their career, and people who are yet to begin their careers, but have as much of a stake and as much of a say and as much voice and enthusiasm in making this real. And the fact is, no matter what point in their careers people have been in who have looked at this, at no point has it not been taken seriously. You know, that the genesis of this document, and it's something that we talk about even otherwise, it comes up a lot in our conversations, that the genesis of this document was from young people, and it was young people who put this together. But in taking it, in everything that Rita and Reem and all of the young people who worked on this to put this together, at no point has it ever been scoffed at or looked down on as, you know, this has just been written by kids. It's always, right from the get-go, it's held a lot of weight and value, and it's been taken seriously as something that we really need to push. And as people that have been working on editing it, we haven't really had to do that much even, you know, it was already like a hugely high quality thing that came to us. So just a massive congratulations to everybody who's been a part of this. As Sandy said, we are blessed. It's a privilege and an honor to be a part of this, and we are so excited to see where this is going to go, and we're also confident that it is going to go somewhere. You know, we aren't just working on this expecting that it isn't really, that it doesn't have a goal. It has a goal, and we also have faith in it, and we see it as achievable. And so a massive congratulations to everyone for how far we've come, and just a huge expression of excitement for how much further this is going to go. So that would be my thoughts. I'll hand it back to Sandy. Is there anyone else on the drafting team who's here who would like to say a word?
Unfortunately, Peter wasn't able to show up today due to a last minute conflict, but I think I speak for him and Nikita, for you as well, if I'm not mistaken, and for everybody who's had a stake or has even touched the document, written one word that's been passed on over to the document. I think I speak for everybody when I say, you're absolutely right, Nikita. Nobody has looked down upon the resolution. Nobody just looked at it and said, oh, this is just a MUN debate. Nothing's going to get out of this. I think, and it really speaks levels, because after, you know, the many hours of editing, the many hours of debates and research and getting ourselves familiarized with the UN process and past UN resolutions, I think there is a lot to be said about the quality of the work that we're doing, and not only the quality of one resolution, but all of the resolutions we received, you know, in which we had to fit and mend and kind of make it work into one. They were all of great quality. And I think, you know, don't take it from me, but take it from all the other organizations we've worked on, all the ministries we've sent it over to, all the people who actually are at the peak of their career or who've had X amount of years in their professional career, who've really looked at this and said, wow, young people wrote this. And that was literally, like, if I can sum it up, everybody's reaction into one sentence, that was that. And they were amazed and astonished at the amount of work and dedication and really the inspiration that came out of the resolution. And I think one thing that distinguishes us as, you know, this WASH-PAP campaign versus other resolutions and UN resolutions is the amount of inspiration that comes out of this. At the end of the day, we know we are working together to try and encourage and engage our world leaders to do something that will better us in our future. At the end of the day, we're the ones, and our children and our children's children, so we're the ones who are gonna reap what we sow and benefit everything. And so everybody's response was, not only are they active and not only are they possessing initiative and really doing something to make the world a better place, but it really it compares to the other resolutions that are being brought to other general assemblies and other conferences and stuff. It really compares. The quality of the work is not to be undermined, but really celebrated and encouraged. And really at the forefront of it all is youth empowerment, because at the end of the day, we are the ones who are going to live in this world of ours, and we should be able to have a say and a stake in it. And that at all hasn't been undermined at all, but in fact, it has been celebrated courageously by so many people worldwide, institution-wide, industry-wide, and we're very blessed and honored to have been part of this. And I'm going to stop talking about the resolution a little bit, but I do want to say a big thank you to all of our youth people who were participating in the debates, but also to our advisors in different institutions, our amazing Annie, who's been there through it all, and the entire team, the entire MUN, OSW, WashPap team, the entire database of institutions we've had the privilege of reaching out to and getting their feedback, the entire ministries we've reached out to, and anybody and everybody in between. Nobody really, we couldn't have gotten to where we are without everybody's assistance, or without everybody's, I don't want to say assistance, but even by looking at a document, it really took us to the next level, and we couldn't have been more proud to have been part of this. So enough about the resolution. If you guys have more specific or fact-based questions about the resolution, I'm happy to answer it at our little Q&A session, but I'm gonna now hand it over to Shagun, who's gonna talk to us all about the advocacy campaign, because a big part of this WashPap 2030 campaign is our global advocacy campaign.
Sure. Hi, everyone. It's such a pleasure to be here and to talk to everyone, and just hearing your experiences with One Shared World, with MUN Impact, and these debates. It just makes my heart so full, because all of these things and all of these things that all you young people have engaged in is advocacy, and you are making change even when you don't know that you are, right? And that's the whole part of the process, because every small bit that you've contributed to and every small piece of the puzzle that you're filling in is leading to kind of creating a better world, and trying to help and fix the damages and the bridges that we need in this world. And so it's my pleasure to talk about advocacy and how that's very, very important. So I'll start with a simple question of what is advocacy, and is advocacy the same as activism, and how does advocacy really fit into your everyday lives, right? Now, advocacy to me means any kind of call to take action. And advocacy can mean you advocating for any one issue or multiple issues that you care about. So for example, if I care about women's rights, and I also care about sustainability, and I also care about LGBTQI rights, and I also care about what's happening in global affairs, what's happening in Afghanistan, for example, what happened in Turkey when there was this entire kind of violence against women that was happening, and so on and so forth. So advocacy basically means you advocating for any kind of issue or multiple issues that you really, really care about. Now, how do we advocate, and why do we advocate? Why should we have to advocate, right? Aren't there governments and companies and organizations that are already doing this kind of work? So the way it works, or the way I think it works, is that there are different components and different institutions that are part of building change, right? So it's not ever just one body or one institution that is driving a movement. There are multiple layers and multiple institutions that come together to really bring about change. So whether it is our governments, they work hand in hand with people who kind of fund our economy. They work hand in hand with people who are at the grassroots, working with people who are underserved. They work hand in hand with our students who are in different parts of the world, who are learning and trying to create and learn about the ways in which we can create a better world. And so all of these different things that I mentioned, whether it's schooling, whether it is NGOs, whether it is corporates, whether it is government bodies, whether it's international bodies, they're all stakeholders of a huge kind of society that we live in, and towards driving change. And we, when I talk about we, I mean all of us in this session, are civil society, right? And civil society just basically means it's a fancy word for saying the common people, right? And so we as the common people are also stakeholders in this kind of circle of making and driving change, because we're the ones who can put pressure on our institutions and kind of tell them, that, hey, we're not just here to, kind of obey what you're saying and listen to what you're saying and go ahead with it. We will put pressure on you to do and be better. We will put pressure on you to show up in your elections next time and promise better things to us. We will put pressure on you so that you don't employ child labor in your factories. And so civil society plays a very fundamental role, not only in pushing governments to be better, but also in pushing corporates to be better, also in pushing academic institutions to be better. Any kind of institution that you think about, civil society is key in making change and pushing them to take action. The reason is because all of these different bodies are accountable to us. Protests are a very kind of overt form of advocacy. So I'm sure all of you have either participated in or read about some kind of protest that's happening in some part of the world, and you've kind of spoken about it. But I'll tell you another kind of advocacy that many of us have kind of engaged in, which you wouldn't even think is advocacy. If you, for example, used or saw your friends use, or saw on your Instagram or Facebook or YouTube or whatever it was, hashtag Me Too, right? We've all seen that hashtag. How many of us saw the hashtag Black Lives Matter? We all, again, saw that hashtag when there was a lot of violence that was happening. Right now, recently, when what was happening in Afghanistan was broadcasted across Instagram platforms, and we all got to know what's happening in a very different part of the world, not where any of us are living right now, but we were aware of it. All of that is advocacy, because you're spreading information and you're kind of taking an issue and talking about it on a public platform. And therefore, advocacy is not just about overtly standing for things. It's also about bringing things that you care about into conversations. So for example, me bringing hashtag Me Too into my conversations through my Instagram is one form of it. But if I decide that, I don't truly understand a particular movement, I can even call up my friend and talk to her about it. So for example, I can call up Sandy and be like, hey, I don't understand what's happening with this issue. Can we talk about it? That's also advocacy, because we're trying to have informed conversations about things that can affect the world, right? And so all of these small changes that we make in our lives, all of these little things that we do in our daily lives and the way we function, all form and are part of this, larger umbrella that we like to call advocacy. So before I get into too much detail and too much theory and bore all of you on this call, I'll talk about what are the different steps to advocacy, and how is it that you, as young people, as kind of, and a lot of times, people say that young people are the future of the world. And I hate that statement because I don't think young people are the future. I think we are the present and the future. And I think that because we're not just sitting passively and consuming what is thrown at us. A lot of times we're taking the driver's seat, throwing the driver off the seat and driving the car to where we want to, right? And so I think young people are the present and the future. And in saying that, it's very important to arm yourself with different means and different tools to advocate for issues that you truly, truly care about. So what is the first step that I would say is essential to advocacy? The first thing is that you must stop and listen. With all the issues that take place in the world, and because we're constantly hearing about news, we're constantly hearing about different things that are happening in different parts of the world, what tends to happen is that we have this kind of information overload and we're hearing so many things, but the voices of those who are truly impacted, the voices of those who are the stakeholders, the voices of those who are harmed, the voices of the minorities that are really living in that problem are kind of silenced, right? Because a lot of people are talking about those things. And so it's very important to listen to those and give stage and give platform to those people who are truly the minorities and who are truly suffering from whatever it is that you're advocating for. So I'll give you one example. Like, we all talk about climate change, right? And all of us are affected by climate change constantly, right? But some of us are more affected than others, right? People who don't have homes, people who are, completely, like right now, for example, what's happening with the floods and with the storms and with the cyclones in different coastal regions of the world, like Louisiana right now was, harmed in a bad way. Haiti has been harmed many times. There's so many different, coastal areas, whether it's Bangladesh, whether in India it is, on the different coasts that we live, like Chennai last year had a huge thing. So all of these areas which are actually getting harmed because of the lack of infrastructure, those are the people that we need to listen to so that we can understand what is truly happening on ground, what are the problems that you're facing, and give those people voice. It's not to say that, you shouldn't have to speak up or you shouldn't be the one talking about issues, but it's important to understand who is the stakeholder, who is the minority, and who is affected in a situation. So the first step that I would always say is just stop yourself and think about who you need to listen to understand the issue in depth. The thing that I also want to talk about is the next step that I want to talk about is identifying your spheres of influence. Now, the word influencer has become very popular these days, and everyone's an influencer on Instagram these days. But I truly think that that's a cool word, because all of us, in a way, are influencers, right? If you think about it, there are so many different people who we influence without even thinking about the fact that we're influencing them. Now, obviously, there are some, big TikTokers like Addison Rae, I think that's what her name is. I Googled it before this workshop. But, you have all of these big TikTokers who are influencing millions of people. But if you think about yourself and your circles, you are also influencing at least 5 people in your every single day, right? And we don't even think about it. Now, who are those people who you're influencing is very, very important, because in your conversations with those people and in your kind of dialogues with those people and in the kind of interactions you have, you can bring change and you can talk about issues that you want to advocate for. So the second step that I would always talk about is identify your spheres of influence. It starts with your personal, and your personal sphere is always you, your family, maybe your closest friends, people who you talk to, let's say, on an everyday basis. That's the first sphere that you influence. So if every day I'm talking to my brother about feminism, for example, there's a very small chance that he's going to grow up and not be a feminist, because I'm going to talk to him about women's rights every single day of his life, right? And so without even knowing it, I have advocated for feminism throughout, my 23 years. And so that personal sphere is that, the first sphere that we kind of influence. The second one, the one that's around that, is your school and your university. So if you're in school, you're in university, you're working a job, whatever it is, that's the second sphere of influence, because those are the people who you interact with and have the power to kind of challenge by, you want to put up posters about, advocating for WashPap. You want to have debates on, for example, issues like WashPap and how MUN Impact, hosted these kind of debates. But all of these different spheres and all of these different ways of influencing your school also makes people think about them. So for example, when I posted about this event on my Instagram, a lot of people messaged me and they were like, oh, what is WashPap? I've never heard the word WashPap. I've heard wash, but what's WashPap? That's another way of influencing my small circle of, those, 300-400 people, because I can talk about that issue and advocate to those people. The third kind of sphere around that is your local. Now, what is your local is, the way I would think about it is, where is your home? So it could be your small town, it could be a city, it could be a city you're living in right now. And that is, again, a sphere that you can kind of influence. Your community is something that you can influence. So for example, if you live in a community where you see that they treat street dogs really badly, right? And you, for example, really care about street dogs, you could start going door to door and talking to people and being like, hey, why do you have a problem with these harmless street dogs? And that may not seem like a very big thing at the end of the day, but in your really small influence of those 200 houses that you live around, you have advocated for an issue that you truly, truly care about and led to the change of something. With WashPap, for example, we truly believe that it's not only about, we have to stop global warming and now suddenly tomorrow morning there's going to be no wastage of water, there's going to be no discharge of, problematic waste in the oceans and everything's going to be fine. No, it could also mean that you go to your community and you're like, hey, why don't we start segregating our waste? That's also WashPap in a way, right? Because you're talking about sanitation. But if you go around your community and you're like, hey, you know what, we should actually have like clean drinking water available in a community tap so the people around, who are like, for example, street hawkers or people who are homeless have access to clean drinking water. That's advocacy. And that's just influencing people in your local circle. The circle after that would be your national. This would be the country that you're in. So for example, if you're in a country where they're passing like problematic laws, for example, India, I'm from India, has passed a lot of problematic laws in the past 1 year, and I have been a very strong advocate for them all across my social media, but also in all the circles that I talk at. But even in, for example, the United States, where I studied and I did my master's, recently they passed a problematic law in Texas. And so, it wasn't just something that I heard about and read about. a lot of students and a lot of friends of mine who are now based in the United States are writing letters to their government and saying, hey, you know what, this is not okay. We're going to vote you out if this is the kind of politics that you're going to engage in. And then the sphere outside of that, if you're still with me, you'll understand that there's a huge pie that I'm trying to build, is the international. And the international is truly where we are at right now, because we're so many of us joining in from such different parts of the world. We have people from India, we have people from Bangladesh, people from the United States, people from Canada, and these are just the countries that I know right now. But I'm sure there are people, and a lot of you, from different parts of the world. And so advocating in the international space is much easier than we actually think it is. And I'll give you examples on advocacy as we go forward in this thing, but I just want to talk to you guys about how it is truly possible to engage with that international circle. I'll just briefly touch upon the third point, which is establishing the goal with which you want to advocate. So for example, if you have like shifty conversations on gender or shifty conversations on, you know, water and sanitation without any like end goal in mind, a lot of times people are going to be like, okay, this is interesting, but I don't really know what you're asking for. I don't really know what you mean. But with, for example, WashPap 2030, we are being very clear. Hey, listen, we want clean water, sanitation, hygiene, and access to pandemic preparedness for everyone on the planet by 2030. And we're being specific in our ask. The minute we go ahead and be specific with your asks and specific with your goals, people will listen more, because now you're no longer just giving them some food for thought, something that they can think about on a Sunday afternoon. You're giving them something that they can think about right now, then and there, and think about how they can solve it. So even when I say gender and gender equality, I don't go into conversations and be like, hey, I want like gender equality. I'm going to be like a little more direct. I want to make sure that all women on the planet are given equal access to all privileges that men today have access to. I want to make sure that people of all genders have access to those privileges and rights. So you make it specific. You can obviously go more specific than that. You can talk about the different rights you're talking about, but just trying to kind of go down from that umbrella, you have to think of it like a pizza slice that's, you know, going towards the tip, and you have to keep going down in terms of your goals and, you know, what you really want to talk about, which is where we talk about the fourth thing, which is the most important, which is what is your message and crafting your language of your message. Because you can, a lot of us, and every day we can wake up and say, hey, listen, I really care about this issue and this is all I want to do for the rest of my life. But is getting a tattoo a good way to advocate for something? Not really, because it's not affecting anyone and it's not really creating and influencing change. And so curating a message that connects with people, that people really understand, that people are, you know, kind of sympathetic towards, and people are like, okay, this makes sense. There are people in my neighborhood who don't have access to water. This is something that I could care about, right? And so really curating a message that connects to people at all levels, and whatever it is that your people are at. So obviously, again, like I said, the spheres of influence matter. So whichever sphere of influence you are trying to kind of advocate to, you have to think about what is the message that's going to work for them. I'm going to now give you some light stuff. So, you know, what is the different ways in which you can advocate, and what are some fun examples? So one of the fun examples is social media. I think social media can be really, really tiring at times. I agree. But it can also be really fun in terms of, you know, you coming up with memes to talk about different issues that you care about. You know, recently, I don't know how many of you have seen that Drake meme in which, you know, Drake is just like, you know, what's happening? And then he suddenly agrees with what's happening. I should have come up with that meme earlier. But there's a meme in which Drake's like no to something, and then he's like yes to something. And so some, you know, climate activists during Fridays for Future were like, you know, Drake's rejecting, you know, all kinds of pollution, and then he's like, climate change is cool. So it's a fun meme, but you're also educating people who have no idea what you're talking about, right? So that's one of the things that you can talk about. Hashtags are very powerful. As you all know, the Me Too hashtag was, again, revolutionary and changed the way we think about things. The Black Lives Matter hashtag was, again, another revolutionary one. So there are different ways in which you can kind of talk about those things. I'll talk to you about one more, and then I'll invite Sandy to kind of share her experience on advocating in an international space. Tell me when you can see my screen. Can someone say yes, because I can't see my screen right now?
Yeah, we can see
Yeah,
it.
we can.
Perfect. Okay, so what are different advocacy tools that you can use? One of them, like I said, is social media graphics. So we came up with some what we thought were fun ones. You guys can come up with some more. You can come up with some, like I said, memes are great. You can use Drake, you can use Taylor Swift, you can use whoever, I don't care. As long as you're talking and advocating about issues that you truly care about. Hashtags are really important. So for the WashPap campaign, hashtag G20, hashtag One Shared World, hashtag Rise or Fall Together, hashtag WashPap, hashtag Share the Water. These are important things that you can use in your conversations every day. Even when you post a picture of yourself and you guys are just like hashtag Share the Water, I'm sure your friends are going to be like, what does she mean? And then you can advocate for it. I think it's fun and you'll get some engagement on your posts. And then, sample tweets we've got over here, sample TikToks. So they're basically, what I'm trying to say is that there's a plethora of ways that you can kind of engage on social media. But aside from social media, you can also write a letter to someone who is your international UN ambassador and try to tell them that, I really care about this UN resolution that we as the youth have come up with. I really care about water sanitation and hygiene and pandemic preparedness, and I really want you to kind of push for it in your agendas whenever you talk about it. You can write a similar letter to your government and your official. We have a simple template over here that you can use. And then there are obviously different kinds of resources that you can have access to. This toolkit, along with our advocacy toolkit with the UN resolution, will go live on our oneshared.world website, and we'll be sharing that link. I mean, you can go on oneshared.world right now, and you can find access to these resources. But before I keep going on, Sandy, can you just share a bit about your experience in engaging in advocacy at an international level during a pandemic?
That's a jam-packed sentence to start to unpack. But one thing, and I want to say this, and I actually said it before in my last call at the MUN Summit, the One Shared World session at the MUN Summit on Friday. This is one of my favorite quotes, and I start to think about this quote whenever I'm in a jam, and at every speaking event I'm, honored to be in. I try to bring it up to really leave people with this sentiment. And this quote is from Albert Einstein, so a little bit outdated, but still very, very relevant to today. And it's, if I had an hour to solve a problem, I would spend 55 minutes talking about the problem and only 5 minutes talking about the solution. And I think on the surface, it's a very, not as a complex sentiment as you might think. But when you start to think about why are you going to dedicate so much of your time to talking about the problem, when you're going to start thinking about, well, there's this one solution and I know the solution, let me just say it and provide the solution for everybody and cut out the hour that I have to think about it, it actually does more harm than good. And the reason why is because you're only self-aware, self-conscious of why this is a problem to you. You're not taking into consideration why this one thing, and I'm going to use the pandemic as an example, why this COVID-19 is a problem for everybody else on the world, because it affects us all, but it affects us all disproportionately. It affects us all in different ways. It affects us all in different levels, to varying degrees, different scales. And you don't know why, because you're not really talking about the problem. You just say, well, COVID-19, let's get rid of it. And one solution that we had to get rid of it was vaccines. But in that process of coming up with the solution, you start to not understand how that solution could even be a problem to somebody else. It could be an additional hurdle that they have to get through. I'm going to stick with COVID-19 as my example. If I'm here, I'm located in Canada. I have a problem with COVID-19, but my problem is a little bit superficial in comparison to some other people's problem. My problem is, well, the whole world is closed down. The stores are closed down. What am I going to do? What am I going to spend my time doing? How am I going to get access to things? And my solution is, let's open it all up. I don't really understand how that could affect people. I don't understand how it could affect people who are, immunocompromised. I don't understand how it could affect people who don't necessarily have access to vaccines. I don't understand why, it's such a big deal or how people are not necessarily, don't necessarily have access to safe drinking water or safe sanitation practices. So why is it still going on? And that's why I really like to, spend 55 minutes of the hour that I have talking about the problem, trying to understand the multifaceted components to the problem, trying to be empathetic towards other people who are experiencing the same problem, but to varying degrees. And then from there, I can start to make a list of, well, this is a problem for me because of this. This is a problem for this person because of this. This is a problem for that region, for this locality, for this country, for this population within that country. And once you start to list off all the different, sub problems of this one main thing that is affecting us all, you can then truly have a broad and inclusive solution that everybody will be content with. I think there's a lot of serenity in the concepts of unity and working interdependently. And the reason being is because you're really open to listening to other people. And that's exactly what working in an international environment looks like. I'm in Canada, Shagun's from India. We have people here who are in Portugal and the US, and I can name all the countries we're really involved in. But I do know that it doesn't necessarily impact me the same way it impacts somebody else. And so when you are unifying with a huge collective of people with very diverse backgrounds, very diverse age groups, very diverse ethnicities and nationalities, you start to understand the complex sort of subliminal impacts or factors that really impact them or disproportionately impacts them. So that's why I think it's very, very important that you're aware of what the problem is, not just to yourself, but to the wide range of people. And you're aware of how and why it impacts them so negatively, so that when you do come up with the solution, you are really, really sure and certain and almost maybe 99% certain that this solution right here is multifaceted. This solution right here isn't just a solution to my needs and my interests, but everybody else. And one thing that we like to say within the WashPac 2030 campaign, this isn't a charity. This is the smartest and bestest investment that we can make for our collective global future. And the reason being is we're not safe until everybody else is safe. So when I talk about, well, my country has vaccines, well, that won't necessarily rid the world of pandemics and future pandemics, because this country might not necessarily have safe access to vaccines or any supply of vaccines at all, or it could take them up until 5 years to get access to it. And then, so what does that mean for me? Well, sure, that means I might not necessarily be able to travel, but it also means that nobody else can have that free mobility that we really like to emphasize in the world. And I think it's been incredible working in this international setting with so many different stakeholders at play, because then you really are understanding the entire context of the problem. You really are understanding why it's such a big problem, and you're working collectively to rid the problem for good. And being empathetic towards other people's perspectives and backgrounds, and being empathetic towards their problems and their reasoning, essentially, you're able to really make sure that this isn't, nationalistic interests, or you're just looking at yourself and your country. You're able to really rid the problem for good, because it's not just within your interests. Your interests are not the only interests at play. And that's, it's a basic principle that I learned in kindergarten, but it's, you treat other people with respect, and you treat other people with the common courtesy of, well, they're facing the same thing, so why couldn't I try to help them, especially if there's a power imbalance at play. And I'm going to bring up the vaccines and end it off with that note. Recently, a couple months back, we had our vaccine equity event with the amazing Director General, Dr. Tedros, from the World Health Organization, speak at the OSW vaccine equity event. And he really said something in there that really is profound and very simple, but it's very, you take it with you everywhere you go. If we don't ensure vaccine equity for everybody on Earth, then you're not really, there's no solution to the pandemic. You might as well be still stuck in the pandemic. Just because my country is, and I'm going to throw out a random number up there, 80% vaccinated. Okay, that doesn't necessarily mean anything for me. It doesn't impact me. Sure, my country is vaccinated, but my country is only a fraction of the world. And national interests don't really, or I guess they oftentimes are a barrier to international solutions, because this country's like, I want this, and damn be the other country, or I want this, but I can't necessarily have it because this country wants that. So it's, when you look at the interests of the common human, when you look at the interests of the common person, when you look at the interests of our common world, you tend to realize there aren't that many differences. We're all united by the same message, the same goals of living a healthy, successful lifestyle, and by healthy and successful, I mean just a good, healthy lifestyle in wherever you are located. And that's when you take that to the platform where you're speaking, when you take that to the space where you're advocating, when you take that to the space where you're involved in trying to be a change maker and change seeker, then you truly understand how united we are by our differences and by our collective problems that we face together. And it's only in that sentiment that you start to realize everybody has 1% of the solution, you have 100% of the solution. And it's only by working together that you're able to truly create an inclusive solution that not only will work for you, but everybody on earth who is experiencing the same problem as well. And that's exactly what WashPap 2030 is. It is the smartest and bestest investment in our global future that we can make today. And that's because we're looking at it from all factors, and we're looking at it with one simple concept, and that is the concept of interdependence. And that concept is intergenerational, it's international, it's inter-industry related, and having all these voices and having a wide variety, diverse array of stakeholders have their input, then you know we're not letting anybody slip through the cracks. Then you know this solution, at least fingers crossed, would rid the 99% of the world's problem. And it's only in that way that we are all safe.
So before kind of taking questions from everyone, just because I know that we have a couple of minutes only left, I just wanted to also share just a quick video that we at One Shared World have been working on, for all of you to kind of think about and contribute to. So if you are a young person at home and you're, I hope, really motivated by this session and you're like, I want to change the world today morning or today evening or wherever you are, watch this video and submit your entries for the Share the Water Challenge. So I'm just going to be sharing my screen and hoping that you guys can see my screen. Can someone, Sandy, just tell me if you guys can hear me?
You're good. I don't think we can hear it, Shagun.
COVID-19 pandemic has demonstrated that in our interconnected world, we are only as safe as the most vulnerable among us.
Over 1 million people are dead from a pandemic that could and should have been avoidable. 3 billion people lack access to hand washing facilities, and unprepared public health systems are being overburdened by COVID cases.
COVID-19 is a wake-up call. Join me in calling on our G20 leaders to ensure we're all safe by supporting WashPap. Let's bring safe water, hygiene, and sanitation to those who need it the most.
World leaders, interdependence is a reality. We all need access to safe drinking water, basic sanitation, hygiene, and essential pandemic protection. Please, let's work together for a better future.
So we're still in the process of compiling this video. It's not done. And so if any of you want to be a part of this wonderful video that we have together, and because it's live on our YouTube channel, we're taking entries constantly, please send them to us and please share this in your networks. I will put the details of how you can send it to us in the chat. But while I do that, anyone who has any questions, go ahead.
And I know really quickly that we might not necessarily have time to get through all the questions. And if that's the thing, feel free to reach out to us online. You can email us if you're interested about something. You can, I'm happy if Reed and Reem share my contact information, at least if you guys want to get involved. But do you guys have any questions right now? Any remarks, comments?
Before we close off the session, we would like to take a screenshot. So participants, please feel free to have your videos on and give me your best poses. In 3, 2, 1. I'm just going to take one more for good measure. Thank you so much, guys.
On behalf of the Summit Secretariat and of MUN Impact, thank you so much for joining us, Sandy, Reem, Nikita, Annie, Shagun. So this was our last session of the summit. So thank you so much for wrapping this up with a great session. And I think Vedant can agree with me on that.
Yeah, sure. Awesome to hear you all, and glad to have you as partners.
Thank you. So I guess the room will have to shut down now, but if you want to revisit this session, it will be posted on YouTube shortly. Thank you. Bye, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.